Welcome back. Tonight's story is about a paralegal who spotted a wrong receipt in her husband's coat pocket, smiled through 18 months of dinners, and walked into a county clerk's office in Reno with a manila folder no one knew existed. Pour the coffee. Stay close. My husband took a second wife in another state and called it a work assignment. 6 days after the second ceremony, I walked into the courthouse and filed the bigamy charges myself. My name is Camille Wren Hollis. I am 39 years old. I live in a tan stucco bungalow on the east side of Albuquerque, and I have worked as a family law paralegal at the same small firm for 11 years. I know what a marriage license looks like in 7 different states. I know which counties scan and which counties still file on paper. I know how a man hides a second life because I read about it on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday for a living. The envelope that started this story did not arrive in the mail. It came home in the inside pocket of a navy sport coat my husband forgot to empty before he asked me to drop it at the dry cleaner. It was a hotel folio, 2 pillows, 2 robes, a breakfast for 2 charged to room 412. The smell of his cologne was on the collar, and underneath it something floral that was not mine. The house was very quiet. The refrigerator hummed. The kitchen clock ticked once, and then again, and I sat down on the tile because my legs would not hold me. I did not cry. I did not call him. I learned a long time ago that the women who win are the women who wait. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from tonight. I want to know who is with me on this one. We met when I was 26 and he was 31. His name is Brandon Lee Hollis. He sold commercial roofing systems out of a regional office near the airport, and he wore a wedding band on a chain when his hands were dirty so he would not scratch it. That is the kind of detail I clung to in the early years. The chain, the care, the way he set the band on the windowsill above the sink every night and never once forgot it. We bought the bungalow when I was 29. 3 bedrooms, a cottonwood in the front yard, a porch light shaped like a lantern that buzzed every night at dusk. I planted rosemary along the walkway. He built a workbench in the garage and labeled every drawer with a label maker, which I thought was the sweetest thing a man had ever done. The garage smelled like cedar and motor oil and the faint cinnamon of the candles I burned in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. Our friends called us the steady ones, the reliable ones, the couple who would still be holding hands at 60. His mother, a sharp woman named Loretta, told me at our rehearsal dinner that I had married up. She said it with a smile, the way some women slide a knife between 2 ribs. I let it go. I was 27 and in love, and I believed the best of everyone. I believed the best of him for a long time after I should have stopped. The first warning came in our 4th year. A co-worker named Denise called the house at 10 on a Tuesday night looking for him. He was supposed to be in Phoenix. He was, in fact, in Las Vegas. When I asked him about it, he laughed and said Denise was confused, said the company had moved his trip, said I worried too much. I noted the date in my planner because that is what paralegals do. We note the date. We do not argue. We file. The second warning came 2 years later, a receipt from a jewelry counter in Reno for a necklace I never received. He said it was for his mother. Loretta never wore necklaces. I noted that date too. By the time the navy sport coat came home with the folio in the pocket, I had a planner full of small dates, and a quiet voice in my head that had been whispering for 8 years, and a job that had taught me exactly how a second life is built and exactly how one is undone. I did not confront him. I did not pack a bag. I made him meatloaf the next night because he loved meatloaf, and I watched him eat across the table and I smiled like a woman who had never seen a hotel folio in her life. The triggering moment came 18 months later, on a Wednesday in late October. He came into the kitchen while I was rinsing a coffee cup and he told me, in the gentle voice he used when he wanted something, that his company had given him a long-term assignment in northern Nevada. 6 to 9 months. A rental apartment near the Reno office. He would fly home 1 weekend a month. He said the word opportunity 3 times. He said the word sacrifice once. He kissed the top of my head and he told me he was sorry, and then he asked what was for dinner. I said pot roast. I said I was proud of him. I said I would miss him. That night I sat in the dark on the edge of the bed and I knew. I knew the way a woman knows when the porch light buzzes a half-second longer than it should. He was not taking an assignment. He was taking a wife. Beat by beat, over the next 10 months, I built the folder. I will tell you, plain, how a paralegal builds a folder against her own husband, because the details are the whole point. I started with the joint credit card. I downloaded every statement going back 4 years, and I sorted the charges by city. Reno appeared 41 times. I cross-referenced the dates against his calendar at home, the one on the side of the fridge with the magnet shaped like a chili pepper. 28 of those Reno trips were not on the calendar. I printed everything. I made a tab labeled travel. I pulled his cell phone bill the same way. There was a 775 number that appeared every single day for 2 years. Sometimes 30 calls in a day. Sometimes a single one that lasted 94 minutes. I made a tab labeled phone. I drove to Reno on a Friday in March while he was at a conference in Dallas, and I sat in a rental car across the street from the apartment building the credit card statements pointed me toward. At 6:14 p.m., a woman came out the front door carrying a paper grocery bag. She was tall, maybe 32, with dark hair pulled back in a low knot. She wore a thin gold band on her left ring finger. I watched her walk to a silver sedan, and I took 6 photographs with a small camera I had bought at a pawn shop in Santa Fe with cash. I made a tab labeled her. Her name, I learned later that week from a property records search, was Haley Marie Castellanos. She was a dental hygienist. She had no idea I existed. None. She thought she was marrying a regional director who had been divorced for 4 years and whose ex-wife lived in Florida. He had told her my name was Susan, and that I was a high school teacher, and that I had remarried a man named Greg. I read her social media at midnight in my kitchen with the rosemary smell coming through the open window, and I felt something I did not expect. I felt sorry for her. She was a victim too. The folder I was building was not against her. It was for her, just as much as it was for me. In April, he flew home for a long weekend and proposed a second honeymoon. He bought me a silver bracelet and put it on my wrist at the kitchen table, and said he wanted to make up for the time apart. I wore the bracelet to bed that night, and I cried into the pillow with my face turned away from him, not because of him, but because the part of me that had loved him for 13 years was finally finishing its long, slow death, and even a dying thing deserves to be mourned. If you have ever had a family member or a partner turn cruelty into a slow, quiet game, drop a 1 in the comments. I want to know I am not alone in this. Take a breath with me. I know this part is heavy. In May, the firm hired a new intern, a kind young woman named Priscilla Adair, and she became my unwitting rescue. She did not save me from him. She saved me from myself. I had been holding the folder for so long that I had started to wonder if I was the crazy one. One afternoon in the break room, Priscilla was crying because her boyfriend had lied about a single weekend trip, and she asked me, between sips of bad coffee, how a woman is supposed to know when to stop forgiving. I looked at her and I heard my own voice say, out loud in a tone I had not used in years, "You stop forgiving the day you start gathering evidence." She blinked at me. I blinked back. And then I went home and I added the last 3 documents to the folder and I closed it. And I drove to a storage unit I had rented under my maiden name, and I locked the folder in a small fire safe with a 4-digit code that was the year my grandmother died. I changed nothing in my daily life. I made his lunches. I ironed his shirts. I asked about Reno, and I nodded at his lies, and I waited for the date I knew was coming, because the 775 number had been searching wedding venues since February, and the joint card had a $400 charge in June from a bridal alterations shop on South Virginia Street, and a man does not pay for alterations on a dress he is not planning to see come down an aisle. The second wedding was set for a Saturday in late September at a small chapel near Lake Tahoe. I knew the date because Haley had posted a save the card on her private account, which a paralegal friend of mine in Reno, a woman named Marisol Quinn, whom I trusted with my life, had quietly screenshotted for me. He told me, that week, that he had a roofing convention in Sacramento. He kissed me at the door on Thursday morning. He said he loved me. He said he would call me Sunday night. On Saturday at 4 p.m., Mountain Time, while my husband was promising forever to a woman who thought she was his only one, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a glass of cold water and a piece of toast I could not finish. I did not cry. I did not call anyone. I watched the kitchen clock tick to 4:01 and then to 4:02, and I thought of every Sunday morning of the last 13 years, and I thought of the chain he hung his ring on, and I thought of the rosemary by the walkway, and I let the marriage die quietly in my own kitchen, where it had really died years before. On Monday morning, I drove to the county clerk's office in downtown Albuquerque, and I requested certified copies of our original marriage license from 2013. On Tuesday, I drove to Reno. I stayed in a small inn off the highway, and I walked into the Washoe County Recorder's office at 9:02 a.m. on Wednesday, and I requested certified copies of a marriage license issued to Brandon Lee Hollis and Haley Marie Castellanos on the previous Saturday. The clerk, a patient woman with reading glasses on a beaded chain, slid the certified copy across the counter without blinking. It cost me $9. $9 to hold the proof of a crime in my own hand. On Thursday, I drove home. On Friday morning at 8:45 a.m., I walked into the district attorney's office in Albuquerque with the folder under my arm, and I asked, very politely, to speak with the prosecutor on duty. His name was Marcus Reed. He was a tired man in a gray suit, and he listened to me for 40 minutes without interrupting once, and when I finished, he closed the folder slowly, and he said, "Ma'am, in 22 years, I have never seen a file this clean." The warrant was signed that afternoon. 6 days after his second ceremony, on a Friday at 4:47 p.m., 2 officers walked into the regional roofing office near the airport and arrested my husband at his desk in front of 3 co-workers and a sales rep from Denver. He called me from the holding cell that night. I answered on the second ring. He cried. He said my name over and over. He said it was a misunderstanding. He said he could explain. He said the word opportunity, and he said the word sacrifice. And somewhere in the middle of his sentence, I felt the last small thread of the woman I used to be go quiet and slip away. I waited until he stopped talking. The line hummed. I could hear another man laughing somewhere behind him. I held the phone with both hands, and I said very evenly, "Brandon, you told me Reno was a work assignment. Reno was a wedding. You wore a chain around your neck for 13 years so your ring would not get scratched, and then you took the ring off in a chapel by a lake, and you put a different one on a different woman's hand. I have the folio from room 412. I have the alterations receipt. I have the certified license from Washoe County. I have her photograph. I have your phone records. I have every single Sunday morning you stole from me." I let the silence sit. Then I said the last line, the one I had practiced quietly in the car on the drive home from Reno, the one that called back to the kitchen clock and the porch light and the chain on the windowsill. "You told me a man does not forget the ring on the windowsill. You were right. I never did either." I hung up. I did not pick up when he called back. If you have stayed with me until now, thank you. Tell me in the comments what part of the story stayed with you the most. I read every single one. I called Haley Castellanos on Sunday afternoon from my kitchen, with the rosemary smell coming through the open window. I told her who I was. I told her gently. I told her the entire truth, and I gave her the name of a good attorney in Reno who would not charge her for the first meeting. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, in a voice thinned by something I recognized, "Thank you for not hating me." I told her I had never hated her. I told her we had both been lied to by the same man at the same table in 2 different states. She cried. I let her. When she was finished, she asked me if it ever stops hurting. I told her the truth. I told her it changes shape, and one day you wake up and the shape is small enough to hold in one hand, and then you set it down on a windowsill, and you walk away. The divorce was finalized in March. The bigamy case ended in a plea deal in May. He served 14 months. Loretta stopped calling me sometime in the first winter, and I did not miss the sound of her voice. I sold the bungalow in June and I moved to a small adobe on the West Mesa, with a view of the volcanoes and a porch light that does not buzz. I kept the rosemary, I planted more. Planted on the drive out of the old neighborhood for the last time, with the moving truck in front of me and a box of houseplants on the passenger seat. I talked to the 26-year-old version of myself, the one who had married him in a borrowed dress in a small chapel in the foothills. I told her she was not stupid. I told her she was loving, which is a different thing. I told her that being lied to by a broken man for 13 years did not mean she had wasted her life. It meant she had survived a long, quiet war, and she had walked out the other side carrying a folder and a key to a storage unit. And the truth. I told her the porch light was never the problem. The man under it was. And then I turned onto the highway, and the sun came up over the Sandias, and I drove toward the rest of my life with both hands steady on the wheel.